Good evening, everybody. Come on in. Come on in. How is everybody tonight? Welcome to the channel. If you've not been here before, welcome aboard. My name is Elizabeth, and this is Hillbilly Crime. Mommy still ain't feeling very good. But she went to the doctor today, and they said that her heart, she said they listened to it 3 times. And she's doing, they said her heart was fine. So, all right. So that's good. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Bug Man, he says he's here first. Good. Jessica Jackson. Hi, Yuns. Miss Marnie. Hi, Bug Man. So we looked at that trial. We watched the first day of the trial today for Megan Boswell. Man, oh man, they hit my video too. It's not, it says that it's not suitable for all viewers. So I guess it's where those pictures were shown. So we'll see if they'll overturn it or not. But I'm not going to mess with it. If they don't, we'll just leave it the way that it is. And I don't think that they'll be, well, I was wondering what all that noise was about. My dog catches me on my shows, and she goes and does all the things she's not supposed to do. Sheesh. But tomorrow we're going to have day 2 of the Boswell trial. And all right, so this one that we're going to look at tonight is the one that I was going to show last night, but we didn't get to it. So this little girl's name was Cherish Perrywinkle, and her story is very, very sad. But you know, her story is an example of prevention. What happened to this little girl could have and should have been prevented. And now Prime Crime, Jesse Weber, I think, is the one who does this. They have a great, they tell her crime.
He was giving my 8-year-old too much attention.
So that's what
I had a bad feeling about him.
A monster lurking in the shadows.
You know how old they are? About 12, 13. You can see their mind back on her.
A crime so heinous, it brought jurors and witnesses to tears.
I'm sorry, I have to take a break. Can I just have like 5 minutes?
Can a convicted killer get another shot at freedom?
He is going to be brutal with any victim. If he were out.
Every parent's worst nightmare.
Okay, ma'am. What's your daughter's name? Her name's Cherish. And her last name? Perrywinkle with a P.
June 21st, 2013, Jacksonville, Florida. Rain Perrywinkle and her 3 young daughters are shopping in a Dollar General store. The Perrywinkle family didn't have a lot of money, and Rain couldn't afford to buy her 8-year-old Cherish a new dress. That's when someone took notice.
I looked to my right, and he was standing in the doorway looking right at us. He said, "You look like you have your hands full. I have a couple of little ones."
Now, this could be any of us. We have Dollar Generals. We have more Dollar Generals than we have anything. And how many little families, little single moms with little girls or little children do you see at the Dollar General? I see them all day, every day.
56-year-old Donald Smith is watching Rain and the kids when he then offers to help them. He claims he has a $150 gift card to Walmart, and his wife can drive it to them.
He saw this window of opportunity where he would be able to use a weakness, financial insecurity, and he realized that he would be able to entice them with money to be able to get time with these girls alone.
Smith then even offers to drive them in his van to the Walmart, an offer that Rain accepts.
It was dark. There were blinds on the windows. There was no seat in the middle, and the passenger seat was pushed all the way down.
At the Walmart, video surveillance shows Rain and the girls shopping while Smith just looks on. And as each minute passes, there's still no sign of Smith's wife.
It's so ominous to see things like that because you almost want to reach out and try to change it in that moment. It's heart-wrenching because this is the point before which things will never be able to go back in time.
Later on, Smith suggests buying the family food from the McDonald's in the store. Again, Rain accepts. It's at this point Cherish follows Smith to get the food.
There's nothing distressing about that video. He is not holding her hand. He is not pulling her arm. He is not dragging her by the hair. He is not pushing her. She is not resisting him. If all you had was that video, in this case, hey, that's her granddad, and how awesome is that he took her to Walmart.
But as this video shows, they don't stay in the store. Instead, Smith leads the 8-year-old outside to his van.
He left her mommy and them other kids in the store. Do you see how he did that? He took them to Walmart, saying he had a gift card that he would buy her this dress. And her mommy must not have had a car. They've walked there with their stroller, and she's put her and her children in this man's van and went to Walmart with him. Got in there looking for the dress. You see that he's already paying this little girl a whole lot of attention. You've got to use your instincts as a mother. That's why we have them. That's why God gave them to us. If you hear that gut telling you, or that little that voice in the back of your mind saying something ain't right here, something ain't right here, then something ain't right here. Listen to it, because look how easy that man just walked out. There's her back. That's the last time anybody ever sees her.
Where they get in and drive away.
911 Robinson. Hi, I'm at Walmart. I'm in turn. I think my daughter's been taken. What do you mean? Taken by a stranger. I can't find her. Okay, and she was last seen with this man? Yes, he said he was going to McDonald's, and he hasn't been there because the store is closed right now. I had a bad feeling about him. Okay, how long have you been looking for you? When was the last time you saw your daughter? How long ago?
Why get in the van?
About half an hour ago.
All protectors of children need to know that these predators are out there, and there is a level of blame when you entrust someone you do not know to be around your child who is defenseless.
That child went with him and trusted him because her mother put her in that position. I'm not blaming the mommy, but she does carry a huge responsibility here. She put her daughter in that position.
I had a bad feeling. I thought, well, I feel like pinching myself because this is too good to be true. He was giving my 8-year-old too much attention. He wanted her to buy these really tall shoes that were women's shoes, and I told him no.
You know, listen, I know people don't like her. It was a bad decision, but think about it. She is vulnerable. She has no money. She is desperate, and she's manipulated. She's a victim, like Cherish is a victim.
I don't want him to kill her. I should have told him no.
Despite Rain's pleas on the 911 call, when police respond, they don't initially classify this as an abduction, rather a missing persons case. Authorities wouldn't even inform the media or issue an Amber Alert for at least 6 hours.
I don't think law enforcement actually believed her. This is my opinion. So as a result of law enforcement saying, hey, we're a little skeptical, we may not believe the mother's story in this case, I think they could have found him with Cherish sooner And we do not know if that means she still would have been alive.
The next morning, police finally track down Smith as he's driving his van on the highway. They also receive a new call.
Hi, we're calling about a suspicious van over here, a white van. It was parked behind some bushes. It's not there anymore, but we don't know if he dumped anything because we heard a girl just got abducted from Walmart.
Authorities then find the worst, Cherish's dead body lying in the marsh of a creek.
This depraved indifference to life and the clear ability to just injure someone who is so defenseless and small just shows a level of sociopathy that we actually come to know is, in fact, the way Mr. Smith is.
Unbelievable.
I had a strange feeling about him when I first met him. He took her to the dressing room twice, and I was hoping that she would be okay.
8-year-old Cherish Perrywinkle is found dead the morning after being abducted at a Walmart in Jacksonville, Florida. The autopsy would reveal she had been repeatedly sexually assaulted and then strangled to death. Donald Smith is arrested and later charged with first-degree murder, rape, and kidnapping.
It shows me that, number one, it was someone who was absolutely enraged, and number two, it was someone who had done this before.
What's even more disturbing? Smith is a sex offender with a long criminal career, arrests ranging from burglary to battery to crimes against kids. Yet on the day of Cherish's kidnapping, he was out free.
Every instance where he could have been incarcerated or hospitalized for long periods of time, he seemed to skate by and get out. And the individual reasons may have made sense for each individual case, but at some point there should have been a totality of the circumstances to say he's been given this opportunity and this opportunity, and he is a perpetrator that's going to reoffend. He shouldn't be out on the street. I almost feel like he had 9 lives, and that's not a good thing. It took the murder of an innocent 8-year-old for those lives to catch up with him.
He became sexually aware at 5 years of age. He started to engage in voyeurism by 10 years of age. He had a traumatic brain injury with loss of consciousness and scalp laceration at 9 years of age. This is his historical behavioral issues that I would call concerning.
Smith's trial began on February 12, 2018, over 4 years after Cherish's death. The prosecution's first witness, Rain Perrywinkle.
What did he say to you when you walked out the front door of the Dollar General?
If you really want that dress, I'll get it for you. He got snappy with me because I wouldn't get in the van.
I think part of what troubles people about her testimony is her honesty. Why did you ever let her around him?
I felt foolish after that. I thought I was just being paranoid.
She's heartbroken, she's devastated, but also she's honest.
Ma'am, when your daughter followed after this defendant towards McDonald's, was that the last time you ever saw your daughter alive?
Yes.
Thank you. I don't have any further questions.
Sorry, y'all. I keep forgetting I muted myself. I'm just going to say that poor mother, she could be in any one of our towns. She could be any woman right here in these mountains. A lot of women here are uneducated. and they're poverty stricken. They don't have any money. They don't have jobs because they've got a bunch of little kids that they've got to take care of. And a lot of them will end up living on welfare or living on child support or, whatever little bit of money that they can get from the government. And somebody like this comes along and says, I'll buy you that. But I agree with what that judge was saying. Her honesty does come across quite unnerving, because what do most people end up doing? They try and hide it. They try and deny or distance their own fault from it. So I agree with what she's saying there. She's just coming out and saying, this is what I did and I feel foolish. I couldn't imagine being in her shoes. I couldn't imagine the guilt that you would have. But I'm telling you, this guy looks like half of my neighbors. How many guys do you see like that? Would you think he was a red rummer if you saw him in the dollar store? He looks like half of the old dirty old men around all of us. Because they're everywhere, y'all.
While the prosecution would present a strong case, the defense did a curious thing. In their opening statement, they seemed eager to fight and even cast blame on Rain.
Do not make any fixed opinion at this moment.
But when it came time for Smith's team to cross-examine Rain, Smith says no. In fact, the defense chose not to call any witnesses nor offer a closing argument.
Oddly, if you blame Rain, it doesn't really help your case because you're essentially saying that she was so negligent that she allowed such a crazy killer like your client to then have contact with the children. So it doesn't really advance the theory very much. It was really tone deaf, insensitive, and they backed off.
We would learn a lot more about Smith, including things he never intended to be revealed.
About 12, 13. You can see the wine glass on her.
You hear that?
Donald Smith's trial for the kidnapping, rape, and murder of 8-year-old Cherish Perrywinkle, emotions ran high, including with jurors crying. In one of the most dramatic moments, when Dr. Valerie Rao, the medical examiner, took the stand, even she broke down.
Yes, so what we do is, I'm sorry, I have to take a break. Can I just have like 5 minutes?
Do you want a 5-minute break?
Just testament to the brutal nature of this crime. It's an 8-year-old. Anybody's sympathetic, empathetic, compassionate about a child. But here this medical examiner is having to testify as to all the gruesome details and how horrific, and probably the worst the medical examiner's ever seen in Jacksonville, Florida.
Before prosecutors finished up their case against Smith, they delivered one more blow. They played secretly taped conversations between him and another inmate in jail.
Man, when you look at this girl, you're like, whoa. You know how old they are? About 12, 13. You can see the wine glass on her.
Now, could you imagine that white-haired old man sitting there talking like this? Because this is what he was saying when he was stuck in the cell with a bunch of other prisoners. This is what he was bragging about. I mean, what kind of person thinks like this? But that ought to go to show us all that we only see what people want us to see. We don't ever see what's really behind.
He's a perpetrator. This is what this man does, and he's never going to stop, in my opinion.
Nope.
That's right in my alley, right there. That's my target area right there. That's what I go after. Well, you have fun with that one. Yeah, I like to run into her at Walmart.
It is unbelievable that in facing these types of charges, he would continue to speak so freely like that in jail. And here's the thing, it really shows that he was intending to do this, that this was something he planned to do. He is attracted to young girls and to committing violence upon them.
The jury sealed Smith's fate. It took them only 15 minutes of deliberations to come back with a finding of guilty across the board. Then it became a question of whether Smith should spend the rest of his life in prison or be put to death. We heard from various experts discussing everything from Smith's brain abnormalities to his history of himself being sexually abused, all as possible mitigating factors.
His imaging studies show profound atrophy. When I was looking at Mr. Smith's abnormal behavior, there were, we can say, two general categories of neurologic illness. One was a neurodegenerative disease, such as CTE or frontotemporal dementia.
BS.
And then the other was a various form of epilepsy.
BS.
He has what would be called a orbitofrontal syndrome, hypersexuality, disinhibition, inability to control inappropriate impulses, poor judgment, recidivism. Saying he can't control any impulses, that's too strong. I'm unable to say that. It's the balance thing.
Just because somebody has had mental health problems or even neurological problems, it doesn't mean that they do not appreciate the severity or the consequences of their actions.
But what we didn't predict was the testimony of a woman who says Smith tried to kidnap her when she was 13.
He told me to get the in the pan.
Did the defendant chase after you in that van?
He did.
I was horrified. That kind of terror for anyone, much less a 13-year-old girl, I can imagine the trauma.
I was slipping and I was so afraid I was going to fall out and he was going to find me. He said, I know you're in there, you little bitch, and I'm going to find you.
It's so similar and it was so long ago. And that's what's such a problem. And it really speaks to gaps in the criminal justice.
So that woman that was up there, she's an adult now, but she was one of his victims when she was 13. So she's testifying as an adult to what he did to her way back then. So, and I think somebody said it in here a minute ago. You think all the times that he was caught, because he was caught a ton of times. He was just let right back out. What about the times he wasn't caught? I bet you Cherish ain't the only one. He's just the only one that they caught him.
System. It speaks to what could we have done. It should never have taken this long.
Once again, the jury sided with the government and recommended death, with Judge Mallory Cooper ultimately imposing the sentence.
I broke out crying. But no, it's not justice. The legal system works the way it works. But he's been living for 5 years after the death of my daughter, and he's going to be living until the death penalty is either done or whatever the case may be, and that's not justice. She didn't get that option to live those many years.
You would think this would be the end of Donald Smith's story. It isn't.
Oh no, you're dead. I snapped.
After Donald Smith was convicted of the brutal rape and murder of 8-year-old Cherish Perrywinkle and sentenced to death, the world learned about another side of the killer. Recorded jailhouse conversations between Smith and his mom came out.
This is way bigger than anything. It's way bigger than Anthony.
Casey Anthony.
Way bigger. There's people out there that you would think that don't have a damn clue about anything that's going on right around them, right beside. And they know me well.
This is scary.
What's disturbing is how involved and excited he was about the attention that he was getting. And so we can see this collateral almost benefit that he is getting from this.
He didn't have no shame, y'all. People like that, they don't have a shame. They don't have a guilty conscience. They don't feel bad and regret what they did. He loved it. Look at them eyes. He loved it.
Smith actually denies being a child molester.
I don't view children as sexual objects.
That is bizarre. Obviously, that is laced with complete dishonesty, but it might just have been something that he was telling his mom, or that he doesn't want to be perceived that way in jail, because child molesters in jail, of course, are exposed to a lot more violence by fellow inmates, and they also are not given a lot of priority by the jailers.
In one of the most shocking admissions, he suggests that as a registered sex offender, he had no choice but to kill Cherish when she followed him.
That's what I told Harry. He says, man, he says, what she got in your van? Just all I knew was, you gotta go. You have to go. I don't care how, you gotta go.
Blaming the victim, I think, is how he rationalizes in his sick brain how it's okay and why it's okay. Oh, it wasn't my fault. It was her fault. She made me do it.
After he had lured her, spent all that time and energy to get the family to trust him and to get to be able to walk away from him, from them. Oh, it's her fault.
Well, 8-year-old girl, and I'm a sex offender, and it's her fault, not mine. I think that's a sick way of rationalizing it.
Then Smith appears to strategize a mental health defense, even asking his mom for a copy of a manual on psychiatric disorders.
That's how manipulative he is, that he's manipulating his mother to get these things so that he can do the best he can to get out of jail. The reality is he is going to be brutal with any victim. If he were out, I think he'd have more.
At the end of the day, though, this case has always been about the loss of an innocent young girl.
That poor baby.
She was, wow. It's hard to explain it. And you'd never see her unhappy. She was never miserable. She never had any signs of anything. She was just smiling, just the biggest smile on her face every time you've seen her. And I know if you talk to people in Jacksonville, they'll tell you the same thing. To have an 8-year-old is taken out like this is just unreal. I just hope they remember her smiling face and the fact that she had a good life ahead of her and would have probably been very successful at something. But we'll never know now.
Hey, so we're going to get you right back to Prime Crime in just a minute. But before we do, I want to call out one of our partners, our sponsors, who helps make this show happen. And by the way, we actually
straight from a nightmare.
Truthfinder.com, you type in a name, and within minutes and a paid subscription purchase
on Prime Crime.
Chickasaw County 911.
It's a scene straight from a nightmare.
What I took away was the pain and the trauma of the first responder. That person's life is never going to be the same again.
And all eyes on a concerning couple.
Were you at any time during Phil's life aware that was a condition that? No.
As I said, it's not my fault.
I didn't really even challenge Cheyenne in the interview. We had no idea. It was far worse than that.
High profile and memorable.
Well, we'll stop that one here, but we'll watch this other one too if y'all want to. I just want to make a couple comments. Kate says those brain disorders show up with mood swings and inability to manage, not total lack of empathy. No, they sure don't. Jessica says, well, there you go. He would repeat offend over and over. He already was. He was a repeat offender. Why was he not off the street? I mean, there were enough accusations and charges against him. Why wasn't that taken? They said it perfect. Why wasn't that taken in totality? You know, if you guys watch my show regularly, you know how many times I read out of the newspaper how many SMEX offenders are right here in Letcher County. They're everywhere. They're everywhere. They're even right in your own neighborhoods. They're right next door to you. And a lot of times people bring it to the attention of the authorities and nothing ever comes of it. What do you do then? All you can do is what you can do. Yes, he can control himself. BS is right. It's heartbreaking. That was preventable. I don't want to blame that poor little old mommy. I don't want to sound like I'm blaming her at all, because I'm not trying to at all. But man, we have got to be smarter. My mom wasn't very aware, or somebody said, I think it was Bugman there said a minute ago, it's no experience. It's no, I don't know. It's being naive. When I was little, like, if your brain does not work like that, if you're not thinking about it, then you don't think about other people thinking about it, so it's hard to prepare for something that you don't even think about even happening. Bless her little heart. Let's listen to this.
True crime cases. A death in an Iowa home leads to many questions and a horrifying outcome.
Chickasaw County 911.
It's August 30th, 2017 in Iowa. Zachary Koehn, a father of 2 young children, calls 911 and reveals a terrifying discovery.
Okay, what's going on?
Around 9, my girlfriend went to feed our son, and then about 11 or 11:30, she went to check on him, and he was gone.
Gone meaning?
He died.
It's this statement that would begin the investigation into the death of 4-month-old Sterling Koehn, who would be found dead in his swing.
What I took away was the pain and the trauma of the first responder. That person's life is never going to be the same again after seeing that close up, and having been someone as a former prosecutor who went to a plethora of crime scenes, right? But to see a helpless child in that state is just a whole new level.
She went to check on him, hadn't heard him cry or whatever, and he passed away.
Typically, if a person is going to dial 911 after their child is dead, they would be panicking or they would be in shock. In this case, Zach acted what I like to call desperately casual. And this is a red flag. His neighbor was actually the one that had to tell him to call 911 because he was just standing outside of their apartment complex. So this was not rational decision making. When responders showed up, that Zachary was muttering, he was casual in his demeanor, he was quiet, there was no tear to be seen. It was later argued that he was in shock in this moment, but shock doesn't look like this.
It's particularly interesting what Koehn says about the potential cause of death.
I don't know if it's sudden death syndrome or what.
Zach's comments about sudden infant death could be a viable consideration. Whenever somebody loses a child, especially a young child like Sterling, that's something that we would consider.
Police, though, need more answers. Hours after Sterling's death, Special Agent Chris Calloway spoke with Cheyenne Harris, Koehn's girlfriend and the mother of Sterling, as well as the couple's daughter, 2-year-old Nala.
Do you remember putting Sterling in the swing?
There was a detachment when talking about Sterling. She lit up when she was talking about her daughter, when she was talking about her dog. But the comments about Sterling, there was maybe a coldness.
Every time he crapped, it was straight liquid.
Okay.
I actually had a diaper where there was no crap in it, and I was amazed.
Yeah. How could you tell when he was uncomfortable?
Pause, I guess.
Okay.
That's pretty much all we could do.
Harris explains the moments leading up to finding Sterling dead.
So now I wake you up around noon. What happens next?
I got up and changed her diaper, went to the bathroom myself, fed her, and then I got her set up in the living room to watch a movie for a little bit.
What did you feed her? Do you remember?
Cookies.
That's okay.
And I started thinking, it's been a while since I heard from Sterling.
What happened next?
I got up and found him. And then I went and woke up Zach.
Calloway goes through different possible scenarios.
No illegal drugs in the house or no medication that you know of that Sterling could have gotten into or found or ingested. Okay.
Initially, you go into these child death investigations with an open mind to it could be something medical, it could be something criminal.
While crossing off these potential options, what does become clear is something feels a bit off.
When you found Sterling, did you take him out of the swing, or is he still in the swing?
He's still in the swing.
Okay. Then what happens after he gets out?
After some freaking out and having no idea what to do or say, we called the ambulance.
I don't think she really understood the full gravity of what she was facing and what had happened to her child.
Coming up.
And it's not my fault.
Is it unusual to go that long without checking?
In 2017, Iowa police are called to the residence of Zachary Koehn and his girlfriend Cheyenne Harris. They find the dead body of the couple's 4-month-old son, Sterling, lying in his swing. It's not immediately clear how Sterling died, yet when Harris speaks with Special Agent Chris Calloway, some of the pieces of the puzzle start to fill in.
Well, just tell me, Sterling's schedule.
He normally was able to sleep through the night with no problem.
Okay. Where was Sterling?
In the next bedroom in the swing.
Okay. So Sterling was in the swing, but the swing wasn't moving at that point. Okay.
Is it possible that this couple just accidentally forgot about their baby son in his swing?
Would that have been, around what time would that have been when you got him the bottle and changed him?
I'm honestly not sure what time.
When was Zach's last contact with Sterling?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
How exactly could that happen? This becomes all the more complicated when you dig into the lives of Harris and Koehn.
Overall, Zach and Cheyenne, they were just an irresponsible couple. They would do meth together. They came together based on their drug use, not love. She continued to use methamphetamine after Sterling was born. When Sterling was born, they found methamphetamine in his blood. Drug use in general affects a person's decision-making and can make it more difficult for a person to think clearly. It can increase distractibility, reduce motor speed. Overall, when you're saying yes to using meth, you're saying no to being a good parent.
After everything that's happened, and all I can think about is that.
Yeah, well, you're juggling a ton of stuff. I mean, a lot of things going on.
Cheyenne has been a mother before, and so she should have known how to care for her child. Zach made anywhere between $35,000 to $45,000 a year. He found money to spend on methamphetamine, but did not have the money allegedly to spend on the special formula that their baby needed. Their friends would come over, but they had no idea that they even had a baby. So overall, these were two people who were not proud to have a small baby.
Does he help you at all with child care? Zach?
No, he doesn't have.
I don't see how somebody couldn't have known this was going. Somebody somewhere, whether it was their friends that came over, they said their friends didn't even know they had a baby. Somebody had to know this baby existed.
have the stomach for diaper changing.
His viewpoint was very much that the man goes out and goes to work and does not have anything to do with the home front. Basically, I'm bringing home the money, you take care of the child and you take care of the house. And that's why he was just not engaged when it came to parenting young Sterling.
The issues in their parenting became even more apparent when we learned about Sterling's birth during a party.
Spend all day trying to go to the bathroom. Cramps got worse and worse and worse. Pushing feels not the way that it normally does. I go to stand up and there's a bullet and I'm like, oh my God, there's a head. So I sit back down on the toilet, scream for Zach. He came out in the water and he was just, eyes popped open, he was just staring at me.
Oh.
We wrapped him up and waited for the ambulance.
Her mother literally didn't realize she was in labor and she was at a party and literally gave birth in the bathtub of the people's house. Should you have been at the party? Let's kind of start with that. And then, secondly, obviously that lack of awareness about your body and the fact that you're, going into labor, that's already setting the child up for a very problematic life.
I can't help but feel that I could have done differently, or that I should have checked on him more.
Is it unusual to go that long without checking?
He always lets me know when he needs something, so I didn't think anything of it.
Sure.
When we return, we'll get an answer as to what actually happened to Sterling.
I didn't really even challenge Cheyenne in the interview. I didn't know the condition of Sterling at the time. We had no idea. It was far worse than that.
By the way, as we put these prime crimes together, I am always fascinated by the legal arguments that are put forward at trials. I'm an attorney. What can I say?
Things from the guys, and
So this has been going for a while.
but the idea is to get you guys the truth and the answers that you need.
In 2017, Zachary Koehn and his girlfriend Cheyenne Harris tell police they were shocked to find their 4-month-old son Sterling dead in his swing. Harris would explain to investigator Chris Calloway that she fed Sterling.
How many feedings would Sterling have a day?
But normally it would be 3 or 4 of the 8-ounce things.
Okay.
And Sterling's room seemed to be fine.
How warm was the room?
It was comfortable. It didn't seem too hot to me.
Yet it soon becomes clear that things aren't adding up and that the couple, who struggled with substance abuse, hadn't checked on Sterling for quite some time.
I didn't have any preconceived notions about what had happened. And as she started talking, I was just left with that gap in time. So we're looking at 19 hours with no care of a newborn.
If you were to predict what the doctors will find, what do you think?
Zach keeps saying something about sudden death syndrome.
Okay.
Overall, wasn't very well thought through. This just doesn't add up with sudden infant death syndrome.
There's something else to know about Sterling's death, something that would make this case stand out from many others. Sterling wasn't just found dead in his swing, but his room was in fact extremely hot and smelled of urine. And one of the most disturbing revelations, the infant's diaper was filled with maggots.
Sterling was taken to our state medical examiner's office where an autopsy was done, and cause of death was denial of critical care. And the manner of death was considered homicide.
He, I believe, was an entomologist who spoke extensively about, the fact that the flies and the maggots that were on baby Sterling's body, he was able to track back and say, listen, based on where the eggs were in their development, how the flies were in their development, we can say that, this had been going on and this child had been in the state for close to 2 weeks. How did the child stay in a swing for 2 weeks without diaper being changed, anyone checking on him? That's just beyond the pale.
According to the autopsy, Sterling died from a combination of malnutrition, dehydration, and an E. coli infection. Ultimately, both Koehn and Harris were arrested and charged with first-degree murder and child endangerment.
I think that drug use, along with mental health, contributed to this, but I think it goes deeper than that with this couple. There is an absolute lack of empathy towards their child. You could argue that there's some disorder or that they're disturbed mentally, but there's also an element of evil here. It takes conscious effort to do this.
Up next, Koehn and Harris each go to trial and try to convince jurors they're not murderers.
Did you know that Sterling had not been changed for some time?
I did not. No.
Did you want to see Sterling?
Of course not. No.
Did you want your son to die?
I did not. No.
I couldn't even hardly look at him.
How has Sterling's appetite been the last day, couple days? Their feedings?
As far as I can tell,
Okay.
In Iowa, parents Zachary Koehn and Cheyenne Harris are facing murder and child endangerment charges in connection with the death of their 4-month-old son, Sterling. Forensic evidence, including the presence of maggots in the infant's diaper, suggests Sterling hadn't been fed nor changed in 2 weeks and was left to die in his swing. The couple were tried separately. First up was Koehn.
Little Sterling couldn't feed himself. He couldn't change his diaper. He was vulnerable as only an infant can be. The evidence in this case will show by his actions, he directly caused Sterling's death. He told the dispatcher that his son had died of SIDS, or sudden infant death syndrome. That's not what happened in this case. This was not an accident. That was a cover story concocted by this defendant to cover the awful truth.
And he's going to talk about the evidence. Why this is a tragedy, but not a crime. And we're going to ask you to return a verdict to not guilty.
He said
In a
not
case
a crime.
with such horrid details, many wondered, how could the defense explain this away? Well, Zachary Koehn himself tried to do just that when he took the stand.
He said several times in cross-examination that you trust the wrong person. Who is that person you trust?
Cheyenne Harris, the mother.
Were you at any time during someone's life aware that that was a condition he was in?
No.
You knew that he was not being fed. What would you have done?
I would have fed him, for sure. I had trusted her judgment. I mean, look at my daughter. She's very healthy, and so I trusted her.
He totally was blaming her and being like, I trusted the wrong person. At the end of the day, it's both of you. Because you're both the parents and you both live in this tiny house. Him trying to blame her and her trying to blame him just made the jury more enraged.
State of Iowa versus Zachary Koehn, verdict form, count 1, lead the jury to find the defendant guilty of murder in the first degree. Count 2, lead the jury to find the defendant guilty of child endangerment causing the death of a child.
Then there was Cheyenne Harris's trial.
That this is not a case where the parent, Ms. Harris, lacked resources or was an inexperienced parent. The other child in the home, her name is Nala. The evidence will show that she was healthy, in contrast to Sterling. In contrast to Sterling, she was properly clothed and clean and bathed. She was properly fed. That child's mother, Cheyenne Harris, failed in her responsibility as a parent. She failed little Sterling. She violated the trust that Sterling placed in her as her mother.
You're going to wonder what kind of monster could do something like this. The monster in this case is mental health. The monster in this case is depression, postpartum, substance abuse. She's not evil, and this case is not murder.
It was an extremely difficult case to try.
I think it was a situation where
Cheyenne was suffering from postpartum depression as well as substance abuse, and then adding in a father who wasn't claiming this baby. And so I think that's why the older child, Nala, was cared for, and the younger child was kind of just left to the side, and it just spiraled down from there.
And that happens a lot too, y'all. There's a favorite in a lot of families that have abuse. There's usually a favorite that doesn't get treated as poorly as like one that gets singled out. That's why it's so important. If you see something, say something. If you see something, say something. My God.
Certainly had evidence of the use of methamphetamine or prolonged use of methamphetamine, meth causing that disconnect. And you lose your understanding of time. It shows that she was really disconnected from reality.
They didn't have anything to show that she had actual hate for this child or any reason to suspect that she wanted the baby to die.
We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of murder in the first degree. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of child endangerment causing the death of a child.
We were hamstrung by Iowa's felony murder rule as it relates to a certain form of child endangerment. If it's proven, then they don't have to prove premeditation. And what that did is it gutted our ability to argue anything along the lines of specific intent. They don't like the felony murder rule. Murder should be reserved for the worst of the worst. And Cheyenne is far from that.
Both Harris and Koehn were sentenced to life in prison. And at the time of this taping, each of their appeals have been shot down.
It's never going to bring Sterling back. It's never going to diminish the horrendous, miserable last days of his life. But you can hold Zach and Cheyenne accountable, and in a small case, prevent this from ever happening again. It's tough to work these types of cases, but it is important that the truth comes out.
They did a really good job. I love Law and Crime and Jesse Weber and them. They do really good stories on their channels. Man, it's just so sad. Miss Courtney Reams, I like hers. I didn't want to put comments up there while we had their words because I didn't know if any of y'all needed to read it or not. It says, I can't fathom how a person can do any of this, evil ones. Evil ones are just throwing kids to the side, hot cars, rats, blow dryers, etc. It's ridiculous and disrespectful to life. It sure is. Kate says the trend of many warnings and reports only to go unnoticed until too late. Yep. Christy says you struggle to keep your child alive and then you see people treat them as throwaway kids. I'll never understand this. And there's so many families out there that can't have kids who would love to adopt a beautiful little newborn baby. And I wanted to make a mental note of this earlier. A lot of states, I'm not sure which ones do it and which ones don't, but a lot of states will let you bring your baby to like a hospital or a fire department or anywhere like that, and you can leave it and they won't arrest you as long as you bring that baby and let somebody have it. You know, don't throw it away. You know, that baby somebody was dumpster diving in Arizona or somewhere like that. I forget what state it was in, but they were dumpster diving and found a newborn that somebody had put in a dumpster. She was a teenager. She was like a 17-year-old girl. And there's a video of it. There's security camera video of her driving up, pulling up in front of the dumpster, and she had it in like a garbage bag or something, and she just kind of, you know how you toss a garbage bag in the dumpster. I mean, unbelievable. Unbelievable. And I'm really interested to see the Trezino, or is that her name? Whatever, Trevino, something. The girl who had the baby in the hospital and then hid it in the garbage can in the bathroom. And she, you know how you put something in a bag and you twist it around to twist the top, and then maybe double it over so it's all sealed, air vacuum sealed. Not that's what she did with that. That's what she did, and put it in the bottom of the garbage can with like garbage and stuff over top of it, a clean liner over top of it, trying to hide it. And by the time they found it, that bag had did what she intended. She didn't want it to cry. She needed it to be quiet so nobody would find it. LS says Kentucky does have a safe harbor law. Thank you, LS. That's what I was thinking about. I think that's what it's called. Bugman says, yep, capital punishment for this kind of stuff. They have to be made an example of. And how many of these, if we don't, I know it's awful. Like, I don't get any entertainment value or enjoyment watching these cases. These are ones that we really need to be aware of and know what's going on around us. It's awful. It's horrendous. And I pray for every single one, everybody, everywhere. I always thought it was a parent instinct, but apparently not everyone has it. No, they don't, Miss Christie. Treviso. Thank you, Seasoning Sprout. Treviso. We'll watch that. Maybe we'll watch that tomorrow evening. We'll watch the footage at the hospital, the body cam, because they've got a real good body cam footage and stuff of that case. Yes, at firehouses. Another girl did that too, but in a different location. They do it all the time. Lexi Treviso. That's it, Miss Tina. Thank you. The other girl's name was Alexis as well. I remember hearing that. Yep. And I think they were both in Arizona, if I'm not mistaken. I could be mistaken. Our city has a safe haven for babies here in our town at our fire departments. Yes, I know it's awful. We have seen 2 of these already. I've never heard of this one. It was tough. I almost turned it off. I'm sorry, honey. Every state needs the safe harbor law. Our children are our future, handled with care. Well, Lexi Treviso was in a hospital. She was in a hospital, and she had went to the emergency room for back pain. And her mommy stood there and went on and on about how she was whooped by her dad when she was pregnant, and Lexi was born with her hips out of whack. I don't know. Said she always had to take her to one of them doctors that crack you back. And I didn't see any of them. Not Lexi, not her boyfriend, and her boyfriend's mommy went to the hospital with her. It looked to me like they was all there for a celebration of a newborn. Only they weren't there to celebrate. But we're going to watch that tomorrow evening. I'd like to see much we all know what each other's going to say. I'm thankful that social media shoves this stuff in people's face. Yeah, it is hard to hear and see, but people are red rumming our future leaders. Great point, Miss Jessica. Great point. Her mom was such a liar. And, talking about Lexi Treviso, none of them, back to finishing up my point I was trying to make, none of them were asking about the baby. Not one of them. You don't see any of them say anything about the baby. And I'll say it again. When you got a spoiled brat girl that's had everything she's ever wanted, Lexi was a cheerleader, and she was cheering all the way up until she had that baby. She was cheering that day, I think. And they've got videos of her out there with that great big old belly on the basketball court with all her little cheerleading buddies, and them saying we didn't know she was pregnant. Well, I don't know who you trying to blow smoke up, but that ain't true. Everybody in them stands at them basketball games was a talking about it, I guarantee you. Who's that girl out there with that big old belly? She about to have a baby right there on the court. I mean, I could just see that at our school. And we're ball moms, like our kids are the boys. But I guarantee you, if I was at that game and saw her out there like that, I mean, I'd know she was pregnant. You think everybody else didn't know she was pregnant? That's just ridiculous. Jessica, they all acted like they didn't know she was pregnant. Her belly was big and she looked so and you feel that baby moving around, at least in that. I mean, even if you didn't feel it all the way up until your 9th month, that baby moves. I mean, I could lay down on my back and they stick a foot out like that or something, or stick his arm out. He stretch real big. Your whole belly would look deformed. It ain't gas, I promise. It's just ridiculous, man. It's ridiculous. And then, they're afraid they're the baby. They've always been the baby. And then all of a sudden, this new baby comes along and, I'm not the baby no more. No, you're not the baby no more. That's just how it works. It's part of what happens. And some little girls can't handle that. I don't know if they take it as rejection, or because rejection can screw you up. I know that. But I don't know if it's jealousy, rejection, or I just don't know. I don't know exactly what it is. Insecurity. But a baby's a joyous occasion, even if it's born to a teenager. Usually the grandpas have them little girls wrapped around, or the little girls have their papaws. What is it? How is it? Wrapped around their little finger. Vinnie Politan said it the other night. Little girls they become the boss. They become, and I don't even have no little girls. I wish I did, but I can see it in all other people's families, Little girls are great. Cinnamon says, I'm very against Gypsy Rose being on social media. I think she's horrible for our pop culture, which is already in the toilet, let alone the youth. I don't ever watch Gypsy Rose. I've seen her story. I've seen I think I watched the Hallmark version of it, of the video, or of the movie. And I've not kept up with Gypsy Rose since she's been out of prison. But, LS says, that's right. It's called Safe Haven, not Safe Harbor, but Kentucky has it. Cinnamon says, I've always believed Everyone should watch Eyes of the Devil documentary on YouTube, exclusive. It's an old one, but people should be aware and not just roll their eyes like, oh, that couldn't be real. Well, thanks for the tip, Cinnamon. So if anybody wants to watch it, I bet it's probably good. They all acted like they didn't know she was pregnant. Yep. Just, and they expect you to believe that, right? Like people say stuff like that and expect you to accept it as truth. I don't know how true this is, but we didn't know my best friend was pregnant until the day she delivered, when she called me. Well, my last one, Alan, I was pretty skinny. I was pretty small with him compared to the other two. And I could wear a sweatshirt all the way up until the day I had him. I could wear a big sweatshirt, baggy sweatshirt and stuff. And I could hide it if I wanted to. I could have hid it if I wanted to. But I knew I was pregnant. I knew. I mean, you just feel different inside. You know, I did. And not everybody's the same way. But I agree with Jessica. Not many can hide it. And I'm talking about if I wore a big baggy sweatshirt and tried to hide it. Lexi Treviso was wearing a short cheerleading skirt and a cheerleading sweater that was pulled so tight around her that there was no missing it. I mean, and you know how girls are. You know, her friends had said something to her about it, but they said she was taking diet pills and all kinds of stuff. Her boyfriend knew she was pregnant, I think. Her boyfriend and his parents all showing up to the hospital for constipation or backache. Yeah, I don't think so. They all knew. I think they did. There's just no, I mean, especially if you was the mom, if that was my daughter and I kept seeing her getting big and big and saw her in her cheerleading outfit and I knew she had a boyfriend, her mother, I think, it bears some responsibility, even if she don't legally, in my eyes, the court of public opinion. I think Lexi's mother bears some responsibility there, because Lexi was 19 too. She wasn't a minor. She was still in high school, but she wasn't a minor. And I think her mom should have known she was pregnant. I think moms just know those things. And the boyfriend's mom, if my son was I got 3 boys. If my son was dating her and all of a sudden this belly starts growing, oh, hell no. We're going to take a pregnancy test. I think they both bared some responsibility. Yeah, her mother was a nutter. Her brain don't work. Like she's an attention-seeking sociopath. What's a side dish of histrionic personality disorder, allegedly. Little girls are ornery, or maybe it's just mine. Well, you know, they're supposed to be a little spoiled. They're supposed to be a little ornery. You know, if they weren't, we wouldn't be doing our job, to be truthful. But there's a balance there, and we have to hit that balance, or we end up with a big mess on our hands. I can see that, but not a little bitty girl flittering around in a cheer uniform. I know. She wasn't trying to hide it. My husband wasn't wanting me taking my sick baby to all those doctors, specialists, and the 2 hospitals just to find she was failure to thrive. He said if she doesn't make it, oh, Miss Christie. Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry. You wouldn't believe how many women come in the ER and deliver right there because they didn't know they was pregnant. It's hard to believe, you know. I mean, I'm sure it does happen, but it doesn't happen that often. I would say more of them are fibbing and just were in denial and didn't want to admit it. You know, I'd say so. That was a lot of them. Or that is a lot of them. Yep, her mother was an underbird. Jessica, I would be questioning my boys' little girlfriends if they start gaining weight significantly. You got that right. You got that right. Those kids were underage. The parents don't have the excuse of not noticing. Yeah. I've heard of that, but don't know which states. Yep. I have allegedly, Lisa. I have a video where she's throwing a fit because I put her in a bow in my hair. She's bawling and walks up to me real close, stops crying, rolls her eyes at me, and turns around. Oh, that's sweet. That's sweet. That's sweet. She was white knighting for that girl and her MH. I was like, give me a break. And then and her behavior in jail comes out. Are you talking about Treviso? I don't know which behavior in jail you're talking about. I can't believe not knowing as hard as a baby kicks. I was sitting at the kitchen table one time with my oldest son, and we were just sitting there, you know, and I was big. I had a big old belly, and I was sitting there leaned up against the back of the kitchen chair, and Willie kicked me one time. He must have pushed off with both feet because it threw me out of the chair and threw me in the floor. He kicked me so hard in my belly. So I just don't believe, you know, and they just move so much and your belly's like, looks like there's snakes under it and stuff. I mean, unless there was something medically wrong, but that's what a normal pregnancy is like. And she looked like she was full term. She didn't have no preemie. And the doctor that found the baby or that took the baby out and stuff, he even said that baby was full term. It was not a preemie. Yes, Mama Duck. Parents, talk to your kids about schmecks and babies, because if you don't, someone else will. All right. Well, I'm going to let y'all go. My dog's over here going nuts, knocking over laundry baskets and all kinds of stuff. I will see you all in the morning. We're going to have day 2 of the Boswell trial. And then tomorrow night, I will get some stuff ready for us. That other case. All right, y'all. Well, you have a great rest of your night. Y'all stay blessed. Peace out, Girl Scout. See ya. Bye. Thank you, everybody.